Now, I like that aspect of the Third Doctor, that being John Pertwee. We're going into color at this point. We're rolling into the 1970s, and we're getting more grounded on Earth.
Yeah. And that's very much that was very much a budget-saving measure for them, was that they thought, well, it's a lot easier to recreate, the present day, or, I think it was kind of the idea being that it was basically set, 5 years in the future at that point or something, that it would be easier to kind of create an approximation of the real world than it would be to try and figure out, how do I build an alien planet, another alien planet and civilization out of, cardboard and egg boxes, basically. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but it seems it's a good metaphor for what they were trying to do. And that's, and that first Pertwee season, I think, is really classic Who at its most grown up for a while. You end up with stories like Spearhead from Space, for example, which is basically Doctor Who doing a version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers in a way, just, with mannequins instead of pod people. And the Silurians, of course, which is they're major for New Who lore, really in the Matt Smith era especially, where you and it's very grounded, it's down to earth. That first season is about putting the Doctor on Earth. The Doctor never gets to leave Earth until, I think it's partway through a story called The Ambassadors of Death, and he doesn't even get to use the TARDIS. He has to get in by his standards, a primitive British space rocket, because the story deals with basically the British version of NASA and a Mars mission with all kinds of strange things going on around it. And the Doctor gets launched into space on top of basically a British Saturn V, which is really cool. Inferno, which ends that season, that first Pertwee season, it's an alternate world story. It's a parallel universe story where the Doctor gets sent into a world where the project that he's at has basically is being run on sort of this fascist world. And it's a great story because, spoiler alert, the Doctor doesn't get to save the parallel world. The world actually comes to an end. So we actually get, as viewers, to see, here's what would happen if the Doctor's not around and the Doctor doesn't save the day, so that when the Doctor comes back to our world, there's even more emphasis and importance for him saving the world. For those who know the Stargate franchise, the end of Stargate's SG-1's first season, which is sort of a big 4-episode arc starting with There But for the Grace of God and going through, I think it's into the Serpent's Grasp, is all basically at Stargate doing a version of Inferno in a weird way. And the writers of Stargate have acknowledged that as well. So it's kind of a neat thing to do with it. But the Pertwee era in general, I think, is really important to Who because it's the place where, even though things like the sonic screwdriver had already been introduced, it's really where that kind of thing comes to the fore. The sonic screwdriver comes to the fore. UNIT comes to the fore. A lot of the things that we're familiar with from New Who, the Sontarans, are introduced there. The Master is introduced in John Pertwee's second season. The first multi-Doctor story occurs in 1973. The Three Doctors. The multi-Doctor story. So a lot of the elements for what becomes New Who today has its basis in that era in the early 1970s. And it's also the era when the show really bounced back into the public eye. And it done well throughout the Troughton era. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But there was kind of some questions being raised about, is this show really got a future? And, the show moves into color with a new Doctor. And, oh, yes, it definitely had a future.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.